Hey Robyn.
Hi PJ.
Welcome back in this recording studio for another episode of Mental Health Matters. And this one is a special one because today we don't have any other PhD students or young researchers with us. We actually have 3 supervisors sitting here next to us.
Yeah, and I think this new episode is not only relevant for the supervisor but also for the PhD students themselves, because building on topics that we discussed in previous episodes, we will also discuss these topics with the supervisors today. For example, we will talk about how to create a healthy work-life balance, the importance of social connection, but also how to deal with anxiety and imposter syndrome. And in each of these topics, we will talk with a specific guest, but everyone is, of course, encouraged to share their experiences.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, so maybe to break the ice first, Bénédicte, Kai and Sabine, maybe it's good that you introduce yourself.
Bénédicte Lemmelijn, that's my name. And at this moment, I'm the Dean of the Faculty of Theology and Religious Studies.
My name is Kai Dallmeier. I have German and Finnish roots and have been first working as a postdoc, then as a research expert. Now I'm recently appointed as associate professor in the biomedical faculty.
And then last but not least,
Sabine van Huffel. I retired about 2 years ago from the Department of Electrical Engineer, but I'm still active as a supervisor of 3 students till the end of this year.
Maintaining a healthy work-life balance in research is not always easy, and many struggle with the pressure and challenges of the academic world. Bénédicte, how do you exactly do this and what helps you creating a work-life balance?
I had this idea of maintaining my inner freedom, maintaining myself, in fact, as a person in all of my aspects. And so I've observed, indeed, with young researchers, but I would open up to all researchers and professors in whatever tasks, anyway, in the academic world, let's say, that we have a tendency to say, well, there is too much pressure and it's like becoming enslavement. But there is another side in it, and it's the side that we also should talk about. It's that also our own egos and our own pride and our own ambition sometimes makes into not only enslavement from the system, but also addiction to ourselves. We're never content. We still want another article and another project and more students and more lectures and so on and so on. So there are 2 sides. And I think if we speak about academic work and research, we should be conscious of the fact that this work should make us more human and not less. And that is something important. So maintaining that inner freedom, saying to yourself, well, no, it's enough now. I choose to do this and not that. I don't want everything at the same time. That leads me to a second idea, not everything at the same time. I see my life, surely when I look back, but also in the different phases that I went through. Your life is not like a linear line up to the top. It's like having waves in which sometimes you take that decision. In another phase, you will have to take another decision. And to maintain that wisdom of equilibre, of balance in your life, well, you don't take the same decisions in every phase of your life. I would never have been a dean when I had small kids, for example. I have taken, in my best possible way, decisions fitting to the situation in which I was. And they were really different when I was younger than now. And also, even within those phases, I always have set priorities. And I think that is something important. This is not a tip or trick, like I say. It's a fundamental insight that you have to be conscious of. And then take decisions, evaluate the situation according to the situation in which you are. That doesn't mean as a dean, for example, or in other leadership positions, that you only have to leave it to the inner freedom of the student, because then you put all of the responsibility to the person, him or herself. So I think indeed, and that is why I put it in my vision text and why I'm working it into a policy for the faculty, I think indeed that the system too should have attention for it and should be clear and transparent on what it expects. But that brings me to other aspects. So it's not only the personal responsibility, because that would put another weight on your own shoulders, but the system sustaining it and supporting it, but still having also for yourself this individual consciousness of, I am the master of what I like to do. When I defended my doctorate, it was in 97, and I received a postdoc from the LWO. I was with the dean at that moment, and he said, well, now it's time to go your way up. And he made a sign going up. And I said, well, no, now it's time to get my children. Because I was 28. I simply told him I cannot have my children when I'm 50 and finish my career on the top. Now it's time for my children. And so the first years of my postdocs, I had my 3 children, and in between I worked on my research, but I didn't try to get, I don't know what ambitious positions in leading the faculty or in going everywhere abroad. I didn't partake in many international conferences. I chose to be at home. My husband was a postdoc too. And we even, I know this will sound radical for some people, but we chose to have our children at home. They even never went to a creche. The 2 of us just changed our time, and we worked when they slept, and we took turns and so on. So that was an option. I mean, and some people would have said, what are you doing? But for me and for us, in fact, it was a good choice, and our children were happy with it. And thereafter, when they went to school, of course, there was more space again, and things changed throughout the years.
Do you think this is an exceptional way you went? Because I sometimes think we sitting here are the survivors of a system, but actually the young people are now maybe in the dip, and how to come out of this. And this freedom of mind, this sounds fantastic. And obviously you had that, which is admirable. But how would you address somebody who is in this, in the valley, to come out of that and simply saying you have to feel free and take your choices? I think this is maybe really difficult for young people who just start their life actually and cannot really plan. We are supervisors, so we have a role in that because we have the direct contact with our student researchers, PhD researchers, obviously. Definitely something to really take time for it as well.
It's important that you create a kind of social atmosphere in the group so that students feel they can be themselves, and then they can really do research. They enjoy learning. They enjoy talking to their colleagues, because they consider them not as competitors, but more as colleagues, as friends, and they can start sharing expertise and experience. That's always what I say. Collaborate, and then just put all your expertise together and write the paper together. Don't write it on an island, but so we have to work together and make or develop science for society, at the benefit of society, and not for your own benefit to be the first in your domain. It's more important to just collaborate together.
So I'm wondering if you are happy with your work-life balance at the moment. Do you feel like you have figured it out and have a good balance, or are you still struggling to find the right balance?
I had a husband, in fact, who was really supportive, because I was guilty and said, look, I should stop, I should maybe work half time. But my husband told me, do you like your job? Yes, I like my job. Well, continue for 1 year and I will take over these and these jobs in the house. So that's why I continued. And at a certain moment, when we had 5 kids, I had the unique opportunity to go to the United States. So in Stanford, and the professor asked me, do you want to come here and give a course on biomathematics? I said, no, I cannot do that because I have 5 kids at home. And when I arrived home, I told this to my husband, and he said, accept it, I will stay home. I said, wow. So this was an unexpected decision, and it was really so important that I could go to the United States for 2-3 months, and he stayed home during 6 months. He called it sabbatical leave. And and this was really the breakthrough in my career because he gave me that opportunity.
For me, it took more than 20 years to understand that there is kind of something different than this curiosity-driven working towards goals. And but these young people I see coming to our lab, they are super enthusiastic. They are super clever. They have not really the mission to save the world, but they are interested in a certain topic and they want to go for it. Then where I ended with this attitude was like the fly who wants to go through the window. Yeah? So and you at the end you fly against it and until you crash, or somebody tells you you may have to open another window to go through it.
It's also not only for young researchers. As a dean, I'm not only on the doctoral students, but all of the personnel in the faculty has a work pressure that's too high. So that means that for the whole of the faculty, one needs to change the culture, I would say. And something important in this kind of leadership is transparent communication on expectations, an open policy first on what is expected in terms of tasks, in terms of teaching, in terms of publications, in terms of evaluation, and then also indeed this idea of team science, which is in humanities not at all evident. I think that is something very important. So I think having clear expectations and be a real promotor, which comes from the Latin, means moving forward people, helping them to develop, helping them to move forward, to become more human, to become a better researcher. And then, of course, is your example. It's not only saying things, but also living what you say. If they see that you yourself indeed do also other things, that you, for example, in our faculty, that you participate in the choir, for example, of the faculty, that you go to a lecture of somebody else, that you don't only focus on your own thing, but that you open up, simply being the human that you are and not the part that fits academic work.
Connectedness with others is an important element of building resilience, and sometimes young researchers tell they are feeling isolated, so finding this sense of belonging can be a real challenge, and especially for foreign researchers. Now, Kai, on October 22, you were appointed as an associate research professor. You're originally from Germany and came to Belgium to conduct your research here, so you also must have experienced the being an international researcher. How was this for you to arrive here and to integrate or to find your routine?
Yeah, indeed, it was quite an experience. You feel somehow an alien, partially at least. So you come somewhere, in fact, Germany and Belgium, this is also no distance. So looking with this experience back now to my foreign students coming from Cameroon, India, China, I really admire the steps they take, so that for them often it's no way back. Yeah? So it's only forward and it's a serious decision. And there are some of these funny experiences in the beginning. In the first weeks, I have been here in the morning, still sleepy, go to the bathroom, brush my teeth. You feel, oh, this toothpaste tastes differently. So you immediately feel you are off where you have been for the last 20 years. And you feel this in almost every step of your life before you then get connected or get somehow settled. And I think this is something which has to be definitely supported. And I was a bit alone. I had help from my family. I came here with my family, 3 kids, my wife. They went to a Flemish school. This helped definitely to get connected to the parents. Then what definitely was super important, retrospectively, this was not an active choice, that I took up my favorite hobby. I played a lot of music before I started my own PhD. Then I had no time anymore. But this means you get connected to other people which are completely out of your domain, but have a very warm interest for a topic which is close to, in this case, my heart, which was the music. So, and by this means, it helps you survive some frustrations you have somewhere else. You can completely a safe harbor or an island where you can just enjoy and leave something behind, what is maybe more difficult if you come from abroad. I've seen this with many of the students, because the more far you come away, the more you are linked to the decision to follow a topic in the research. And you don't travel as the Flemish colleagues often. They leave at 5 o'clock, go to their family, go to their scouts, wherever they have been for the last time of their entire life. And if you come from abroad, you are disconnected from everything. You left everything behind. So I see that, obviously then they even look for their own language groups. And I think this is super important, that you don't give yourself up, but continue, maybe even contemplate first what is part of your personality. It is really this super basic stuff which is kind of burnt in your hindbrain somewhere from childhood on. And this is definitely different from what you see here. Another super funny thing is, in this, even some of the foreign students expressed to me, because I had the same experience, I saw that the Flemish colleagues, they stop sharp 12 o'clock with work and have their boterhammetje and eat it together in the lunchroom. And for some others, this is for a Spanish colleague, she will never eat at 12 o'clock. She will eat at 2 o'clock. You have to accept that, or you can feel alienated about that. I don't know if it's a decision, but you could, for just if you don't want to have your lunch then at 12, take a cup of coffee and sit next to them and get in these informal discussions like, what did you do in the weekend? What are your plans for tonight? And how was your volleyball match? Something like that. And then immediately, then this may be one of these few tricks, which I myself was not good at. But I see that for some people, this helps really to be part of a group, which of course for them is completely newly defined. And still there are crises. So obviously, and it comes often with, of course, the frustration in our domain. 90% of our work is failure. So you have to really always see the half full glass and not the half. It's easy to see the half empty glass. And at the end, you need somebody you can talk to in an informal way. And quite impressive experience was a PhD student in our lab for whom I was the scientific supervisor. And he talked to me only about the science. He was a super clever, but also super loyal person, so with a high code of conduct. But he had personal family problems. About this, he never talked with me. He talked only to actually our common promoter. He chose actively 2 channels for kind of the professional and for the super severe personal. I think this is also a nice way. You don't have to be friends with everybody. You don't have to trust everybody for the same issues. And he chose to separate it and to have his communication channels in different ways. I think this is a nice example for coping with different issues you obviously witness.
You yourself, as a role as a supervisor, how do you deal with these struggles if, for example, a person would not feel integrated, or how would you advise them to get them more integrated?
The issue is we are scientists who have been trained in a certain domain. So I'm completely incompetent actually in doing HR, in doing psychology. I'm lucky my wife is a teacher in special education, so she can advise me, but I really need advice for that. And then I try to pick up, and sometimes I try even to connect people. Here is from the university in HR, I have advised also people go to a coach. But usually you should avoid that somebody gets in such serious problems that he or she cannot cope anymore. And what I see now, it is a serious effort for me as supervisor to keep an eye on that. So it is to be safeguarded early on and talk about the weekend and then try to keep up with the birthdays. And this is happy birthday if somebody has that day his anniversary. And indeed, I'm incompetent in that by nature, being a man and being a scientist focused on some certain topics, which are not at all originally related to what we as supervisors have to do, I would say, half of our time.
Creating a social cohesion within the group is so important, so that students can really be themselves, can feel like I'm at home. And I try to do that. I had a large group of 30 people. I find it very important to have a gender balance, to have... I cannot explain it or prove it, but it really creates another atmosphere. And also I had a mix of different nationalities. So that was not a dominant group, I would say, from one nationality. So this really creates like a very nice atmosphere in the group. Also, what I did, I'm living close to the lab or to my office, and I invited the students 3 times in my house. They can come in October for a welcome party. After Christmas, they come with the partners, and then we have a barbecue during summer. And this really, they see, okay, how I'm living. My kids were running around. And even when the group became larger, I said, wow, how can I cook here? But then some of the students said, well, we are from Serbia, we will cook, And there was one who really went to Serbia, the grandmother was cooking, and he brought all the cooking to my house. And this was really a very nice atmosphere. So you have to create that, and then students, naturally, they start to organize their own social activities. These small events are really important.
Yeah, my supervisor always organizes a summer barbecue, and I feel like that's the moment you really get to connect with all the other professors in our group as well on a more personal level, and you feel more comfortable, and moves me as well as a PhD student that it doesn't always have to be perfect, or I don't always have to act that I'm perfect. So I really like the social aspect, like a simple barbecue. The pressure of doing research, the competitive environment, the constant strive for excellence, it can be a threat to your mental health. Many young researchers struggle with mental issues such as anxiety and imposter syndrome. Sabine, you are emerita, but still very active in the Faculty of Engineering, Science and Technology. You've most likely encountered young researchers dealing with these feelings of anxiety. So I'm wondering, how do you suggest to cope with this as a supervisor at one hand, but also as a young researcher at the other hand?
I didn't know what the imposter syndrome was until I was hearing the podcast. I recognized that, in fact, I had all these symptoms also when I was doing the PhD. And I think since I recognized in my students how I was when doing the PhD, I can really give a lot of advice. And one of the advices is you only hear the positive results. If you look into the literature, you start research and then, okay, it ends in a negative result. You cannot publish that, or you want to publish a paper and the paper gets rejected. But that's normal. It can be rejected 8 times before the paper has been accepted. So I just want to tell that to the students. This is normal. So don't be afraid. You just learn through these experiences. You don't have to be perfect. Just look maybe one day, just maybe 1 year, what you want to achieve. Just look at an incremental change and not, I want to change the world with my PhD. I also started like that. But no, just an incremental change is enough. Don't look too much to the literature, but just start, enjoy, do experiments, and you will probably have a result that you will be able to publish. And this will be good enough. Don't look too much ahead, but just to the next goal, and that's enough. In a meeting with students, I always try to give positive feedback. I think this is really important. While you made some progress, I really appreciate that. And even if I have a negative message, I first start with the positive feedback, and then I say, well, here you need to improve. I give then the negative feedback. I think this is really important. There should be a relationship with my student so that he can tell whatever problem he has, not just the successes, but also share the problems so that I can help him. So I consider my leadership it's a service for the PhD student, and the PhD student can ask my help. So if I look through the different phases of my life, in the beginning, I had weekly appointments with my students because I just didn't have a lot of PhD students. So for 1 hour, half an hour. But then when the group became too large, I mean from 10 students on, I could no longer do that. And then I took postdocs, and I said to the postdocs, well, you are the first line supervisors. I will be at the back office. I'm second line. If there is any problem, we will organize then group meetings so that the students still have a group meeting with all those students working on similar topics. And we will try to organize it like this. But whenever there's a problem with the student, whenever he has a problem, he can always email me, and I will try to make time available because if he wants my help, I know it's always serious.
But as a new PhD student, I believe you are afraid to tell your failures because you are in a group with all the other students who are already succeeding in your eyes.
In the group meetings, I say these group meetings are to share expertise, to share your research progress. And you can also tell your negative results. That's good. And then they hear other students, their colleagues, telling about, yeah, I tried this and I didn't succeed, etc. So then they say, oh, yeah, I can also say something. No, it's not that you only report your successes. No, this is just to share your expertise and show how we can make progress.
One problem I see generally is that the harshest judge for the individual PhD student is the student himself. And this is super difficult to manage because people compare themselves to others. And this is the best way to kind of get in this imposter situation that you believe all others are better, I fail here. And so how to crack this nut, I don't know. To give the comfort that you may fail, that report others may have a benefit from hearing where you failed, that they don't have to have this experience, that it's
saying yourself that things weren't easy for you as a promoter, as a PI either, and that they see that you have gone through the same experiences. I always tell my daughter, you don't go up to the steps from the first to the final one. You go step by step, and so you take one step. That is also kind of a life story, I think, that you can share with students, that you weren't there on top of all of the steps from the beginning either. You also had to go step by step.
I didn't have all these courses about HR, about trajectory that you are coaching, etc. So I had to really develop my own style. And finally, I found a lot in the book of Frédéric Laloux, Reinventing Organizations. We really want more the leadership as a service. So I'm here as a coach, and I want to help you on your trajectory, on your track, your PhD track. I can guide you if you need me. And also, don't be afraid to share with me your anxiety. So dare to be vulnerable. I'm not perfect either. So I also say, look, this was not perfect for me either.
And as a supervisor, do you then specifically look for people who can fit the team? Or do you go for people who are more well prepared for FWO application, for example, like grades? Or do you make a distinction?
Because teamwork is so important in my group, the importance is in fact that the person should fit in my team. And sometimes the best ones, the ego trippers, work alcoholics, they don't fit in that team because they don't want to share their expertise, their experience. And that's why I just decide to take the one who just fits. And sometimes it's the one who is making fun in the group. And so I don't take the decision myself. We just ask it to the postdocs, to students, PhD students, and we decide, okay, this will be the best student. And if these students have the grades you need to start a PhD, well, why not taking that person? I have that freedom, and I really exploit the freedom to choose for myself who will be the best student in the team.
This functional talks, this is something really important. So that to have a formal moment, or at least an opportunity to raise the voice of your colleagues, student researcher, PhD researcher, to talk about the other stuff which is not related to the research. Like, what do you want? Are you still happy? How can I help? Is there something which bothers you? And this is, I think, and it is, in the past it was quite a burden. Now we have a light version of that, even with a template. So this is something which I think can help a lot. In particular, once you or somebody is in a crisis, then it's kind of almost too late. But to avoid getting in a deep trouble, because this is something else maybe that we have to discuss this also a bit once almost too late, and that there is people who are really, I've witnessed this myself. You go to a deep valley, and then what are your opportunities? You don't see it necessarily yourself. And then it's really important that you know that there are several choices. You don't see any, but there are several. You can talk to your supervisor. In this, I talked about my colleague who talked actually to another supervisor, which is also a fantastic colleague. I myself had long walks with a colleague in the woods who had the same issue in his life. So it was kind of very helpful to listen to the story of somebody else even. And there's formal things by the faculty, by the doctoral school, by HR. So really professionals who, in contrast to us supervisors, have learned the matter to help you in non-research related issues.
Yeah, and I think this also touches back on making it explicit, not only that you are trying to keep a good work-life balance, but also sometimes that you're explicitly struggling. So I think that really just combines all the topics we discussed here today, that it's okay to be explicit about these things. To wrap up our episode, I think it might be nice to know from all of you, like based on challenges that you faced as researchers your own, how you use them now to be a better supervisor.
I developed a special female leadership style to exercise my leadership as a service. And I would really like to give that message also to supervisors. Guide your PhD students on the right track to fulfill their own life mission. So know what they want to realize in life and just go on that track so that they really feel this happiness in every moment of life, and every morning also when they are doing research. I just want to be a small change in their life career.
And what about you, Kai? Do you have a final advice?
We are doing serious things, but sometimes it needs a bit of humor to kind of be able to laugh about yourself. Try to see also that it's not everything that serious as it's taken. And of course, it's still respect if somebody's in trouble, that it's serious for him. Feelings are real. But try to get it back to a balance between this feeling of being really at in the depths, and for me it's often this this picture of the half full or half empty glass. I think mostly we are in a happy situation that we have accomplished quite a lot, and this is, I see my mission to tell this over and over. So try to see where we are already now, and it's just a bright future we can reach. And if we don't reach, it's also not that serious. Nobody, no unicorn will die from that.
I think that is an important element, making things seeing things in a relative framework. I always have that experience when I go back to the place where I was born, is a little village somewhere, and then I think, here nobody today is thinking about KU Leuven at all, and they are living their lives. So that is something important, I think. But if I go back to what I started with, I think keeping the integrity of your personality as a first concern is, I think, the most important thing. In doing that is safeguarding your inner freedom, safeguarding your personality, safeguarding balance. And then I would get back to the ancient old monastic idea of ora et labora to end as a theologian.
And I think this brings us to the end of this episode. I'm very happy that we talked to and learned a lot from the three of you. A special thank you, of course, to Bénédicte, Kai and Sabine for being here, because I think it's important that we also cover the side of the supervisors, not only because it can help supervisors themselves, but also the PhD students on how to be more explicit in things. So thank you very much for this conversation. And also, of course, thank you to Pieter Jan, my co-host. I wouldn't have done it with anybody else.
Thank you for the kind words, Robyn, and it's been a pleasure to reconnect again. And it's just very interesting that some aspects are just coming back. Be open about it, dare to speak up, and create an environment where it's allowed to share your feelings and to be yourself. So thank you for this podcast, and who knows, maybe hear you another time.
Thank you for listening to Mental Health Matters. We hope you got inspired by these stories on how to keep young researchers in a good mental shape. If you want to know more about these topics and KU Leuven Healthy, visit kuleuven.be/healthy. This podcast is brought to you by KU Leuven Healthy and produced by Chase Creative.